Okay, so perfect. We are joined with one of our candidates for running for sports officer. This is Chris Morgan-Smith. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Loving the weather at the moment in Bath. It's been good.
Yeah, it's a
So
beautiful morning this morning. Went out for a little run, and it was nice to see the city and the weather.
yeah, no, it's been great. So why don't we start with you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what inspired you to run?
Sure. So I'm a final year physics with astrophysics student, um, and this is now my fourth year at Bath University, and I've been an active member of handball mainly every year throughout. Being on committee every year since obviously not first year, but since then, yeah. And I just feel that sport is a very, very important part of life at university, and it's a massive way to help make friends, help socialise, and just get the most out of your time at university. And I want to keep the sport offering as good as it has been for me for future students. Really, that's kind of my motivation behind running.
Perfect. Excellent. And so what do you sort of think, do you think it's your experience therefore in sports and being involved with handball that would make you a good candidate? Is there anything else that you think would make you a good candidate for sports officer?
So yeah, I've kind of held every committee position there is really to hold. So kind of know the ins and outs of everything from chair, social sec, men's captain, transport coordinator, fixture coordinator. I've kind of done it all, so know how all the sport runs. So I feel like I'll be able to work with everybody who's having issues within their club quite well. And from the more hidden side of the role, the project management, kind of helping build new facilities, like getting 3G pitch running. I've done some summer internships in project management, process improvement. I feel like the skills I learned during those internships will definitely help get those projects finally over the line.
No, definitely. It's definitely got a vast range of experience. So in terms of your manifesto, you kind of laid out that you did have quite a few main goals, but we were just wondering sort of what were your top priorities? If you could pick one or two, what would be your main priorities for being a sports officer?
Okay, so my two very top priorities are, I think that all the freshers who we've had this year have basically missed out on a year of being able to be part of a sports club. So by introducing the sports showcase that I talk about, it will give, I'm hoping to introduce some events throughout the year that will give primarily freshers, but anybody who wants to attend, an opportunity to try out lots of different sports within one setting, to then be able to find a sports club that's like perfect for them, really. And also then I'm quite big on trying to improve the environmental impact that the SU has, really. So that could be anything from as simple as keeping the SU in a paperless situation like it kind of has been forced to this year. There's no reason that needs to change. Something as small as that to all the way through maybe looking at rethinking how we travel to away fixtures and stuff like that to try and reduce the amount of carbon footprint that people are having on the environment.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you did mention in your sort of the sustainability aspect of your manifesto about sort of being conscious of the carbon footprint, and as you mentioned with transportation, I just sort of wondered how you think how that's sort of feasible, how you'd put that into action, because obviously away games are sort of inevitable with like transportation from games. So just sort of wondered how you would implement a strategy to reduce carbon footprint.
So I can only kind of talk from the experience that I've had in organising transport, but one of the biggest issues we had was having both like the men's fixtures and the female fixtures on different days meant we'd then have to kind of hire two modes of transport for those two different fixtures, whereas if we could kind of work to organise for fixtures to be more coherent between different teams, so that's the first and the seconds playing at the same location at the same time, or the men and the women playing at the same time, then like I feel like we could reduce the amount of transport we're actually doing, and then that would also free up a bit more money to put back into the sport offering as well.
Yeah, of course. So going back to what you said about the sports showcase idea you had, I think everyone would agree it's a fantastic idea, especially for those who have missed out. So is this something you're sort of planning to launch, every semester? How frequently would this sports showcase happen? How do you plan to, reach those people and promote and market this sports showcase?
So I was hoping to do one at least at the start of each semester as a minimum. And we'd probably aim to do it maybe like a week or two after Freshers Week, just so that everyone's kind of had a chance to go to the tasters and the trials for what they think might be their sport, and then they can find out whether maybe they want to try something new. But depending how well the first one goes, then there's always the possibility to organise one like mid-semester as well.
Okay, yeah, no, excellent. And you also said about the massive reduction in paper and paper waste due to COVID. Is there anything else that you sort of think post-COVID that you're looking to keep? For example, the booking a slot for the gym, is that something you're looking to keep as sports officer, or is there anything else that you want to take forward?
I think there's been a lot of contact. I know, chatting to the chair of handball this year, there's been quite a lot of, seems to be more contact between the sports officer and the individual chairs of the club this year, just kind of making sure, because we have a one-to-one at the start of the year, but after that it's kind of on a need to speak basis. So I think it'd be quite nice to keep the opportunity to have video meetings. You don't necessarily have to work as hard to find space in everyone's calendar, just to make sure that everyone kind of is doing the best they can to keep their club as well run as possible.
No, definitely. Ben, anything you would like to jump in there and ask?
Yeah, so with the sports showcase again, would the intention be to make that accessible, and obviously accessible to second years as well as freshers, because as you've mentioned before, they've also missed out and need those opportunities for participation to be included in their kind of almost second Freshers Week?
Yeah. So that's basically my motivation behind that, really. So I think depending on how many people were keen to sign up, it would be probably worth then splitting it to either have one for first years, one for second years, or if maybe that many people, if it could be done in one session, then it would just be open to all, because I know from my experience there's plenty of third, fourth, fifth years as well who want to try out a new sport all the time. So.
And following on from that, obviously there's been a multi-sport membership that's been offered this year, so people can join multiple sports clubs. Is that something that you'd want to take over into next year, or would you go back to the original payment structures?
I think I was looking to try and find a hybrid between the two systems. So maybe not a full like one membership fits all, but more sort of a discount system, that as you join more sports clubs, joining the second sports club costs less than the first sports club, to that effect, because otherwise I just think there may not be enough money for sports clubs to actually do exactly what they want to do.
But do you think that certain sports clubs end up losing out as a result of collective sport memberships because possibly uptake hasn't been as high?
I'm not really sure, because I've only kind of had experience within handball on that side of things. I know we've had far more members this year than we have had in previous years. But I would say out of those members that we have had, a greater proportion of them have been not as engaged. But obviously, like, you kind of have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, because there's not that much to have been, not that much in-person stuff to have been physically getting engaged with. But I think the opportunity for joining a second sport club with a reduced financial burden is definitely like a motivation for some people to take part in more than one sport. Yeah,
definitely. And do you think that this is also a good opportunity to reimagine how gym memberships work as well? Because you've mentioned about increasing inclusivity with sort of women-only gym hours to reduce gym intimidation. But do you think that the inclusivity aspect of the gym comes more from the financial cost that many can't afford to use the gym in the first place?
I think that definitely is a big part of it. I mean, when you do look at the price of the gym compared to what you can pay, not only at some gyms in the city centre, but especially at other universities around the country, it is quite expensive. And that's why I think as well it's important to try and introduce maybe a 10-month membership, a 9-10-month membership, because a lot of people are going home for the summer. They're then paying for 2 or 3 months of gym membership at, let's face it, quite a high rate, that they're then just not actually being able to use.
Yeah, and because you've mentioned people have gone home, do you think that the current scheme that the gym have used to refund people who already had memberships when the gym closed to just roll over that membership is suitable, especially when people have either gone on placements or left the university entirely?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't actually ever been a member of the gym on campus myself, so haven't actually seen that much about any of those refund situations. So I'm not really sure about that, but it's something I definitely would look into more, like, if I was elected into the role.
Yeah, and you've also said that post COVID-19, you'd encourage clubs to continue their virtual offer. Is that feasible for certain clubs to continue a virtual offer? Because obviously, well, let's take handball for example. That's quite a physical sport and a ball sport. So how would you provide a virtual offer for handball?
Yeah, I mean, I think some clubs are definitely much more suited to a virtual offering than others. But so we've tried to get people out running by getting like a bit of a Strava competition going within the club. But obviously that's not really unique to handball, and any club could kind of do that really. But I think the idea of having the nice thing about a virtual social as well is that it doesn't necessarily there's always that kind of underlying connotation that an in-person social requires people to drink as well. Whereas if you have more virtual socials as an offering, then people have the option for just a cozy night in their pajamas with a mug of tea, if that's what they want to be doing really. If you have a little pub quiz or whatever, then I think some people could definitely be more inclined to attend something like that.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to pass it back to Sam now if you've got any more questions.
Yeah, I just had another quick question. You mentioned increasing awareness of facilities, i.e. showers, changing rooms. How I mean, beyond like sort of signage, how exactly do you plan on increasing awareness?
I think I'd probably try and add in some kind of dedicated page on the SU that talks about like if you want to actively commute to campus, like here are like the best routes to walk it, here are the best routes to bike it. So try and avoid the biggest hills really around, as well as saying like when you arrive, you can store your stuff here. Because I think at the moment there's quite a lot of people are deterred from the act of actually cycling or walking up to campus from the fact that they then have to lug around like a helmet and cycling shoes and cycling gear for the rest of the day, because there aren't that many lockers around unless you kind of know where to look for them.
Yeah, and I also noted that you mentioned about having a financial breakdown of sort of the club's finances throughout the year. Is that something you also hope to add to the SU page just to be more informative for people who are joining these clubs?
Yeah, I think I'd like people to add that to as kind of a subsection for their unique club, but filled out on a template so every club kind of looks the same. So like you could expect to pay this much for travel, or we've got these weekends away for competitions, but on those weekends you'd probably end up eating out and buying food. That's something you kind of have to take into consideration. And then kit and stuff like that. I just think that you're always sold these sports clubs as like, oh, it's 36 quid for the year and that's everything you have to pay. And then you get 2 weeks into the semester and they're like, oh, by the way, there's this extra cost coming up. And I think the ability for people to look ahead and say, okay, if I join this club, yes, I'll have 3 weekends away, but I'll also be then paying for 3 weekends of eating out. That could then weigh into their decision of which club to join. I just want to give people as much information as possible up front, really, to make sure they're not making decisions they then regret, really.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. I was just going to ask to sort of finish up, is there anything else that you didn't mention on your manifesto that you would probably like to implement, or is something you're thinking about that you think is an important part of your candidacy?
No, I don't think so. I think I spent quite a lot of time on my manifesto, so I've kind of got everything in there that I really want to focus on, and the main points that we've touched on in this, really. Yeah.
Okay. It's been lovely to talk to you, Chris. Best of luck. Thanks from me.
Yeah, thanks for the interview. And good luck with your campaign over the next week.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was nice to meet both of you.